It's 27 years now since I stopped using drugs and drinking drugs. Yes, alcohol is just another narcotic to me, so that's the way I look at it. Addiction, as I found out, is not a disease. It's a behavioral problem. And because it is associated with some beliefs that are deeply ingrained, probably when we get past the age of 35, it's very difficult to change them. That's why so many people go back to their addiction. Now, we all know that altering our consciousness is a need that most humans have. And if that need is associated with exogenous sources like drugs, including alcohol, then that becomes the predominant belief. That if I take such and such drug, I will gain the altered consciousness that I need to fulfill. Therein lies the problem. Exercise, meditation, various other non-exogenous, possibly harmful and poisonous chemical practices can do actually a better job, because instead of destroying areas of the brain or reassociating areas of the brain, they enhance areas of the brain. And when these states get to be very strong in the individual, they can be accessed very easily. Matter of fact, just by thinking of them. This is something that I have greatly improved upon along the years. I started in with the inner development aspect of myself at the age of about 16. By the age of 17, I became interested in Buddhism, and after the death of my father, who was a very strong paternalistic figure, who I was actually my God, after his death, I began a journey and a search into meaning, the ultimate meaning of it all. Took LSD, found it, discarded it, because I had not dealt with my emotional pain due to several issues that hung on from childhood. I didn't know that those could be fixed, and that they could be fixed then, and consequently I could have possibly had an easier time of it in my life. However, today, living in the now, I choose not to look back on the past. The past is the past. I did it, I lived it, it's over now, and I live in the now as much as possible. Therein lies the subject of this. It's been 27 years that I've been clean. And for me, it's very important. And what's very important is the more I associate with people who are using for whatever reason. Some of them are just doing it occasionally and recreationally, and it does not seem to affect their everyday life. In fact, it's a nice recreational pause for them, or mood-altering, positive. Most that I have seen are using to medicate themselves, usually for some emotional reasons. Having great familiarity with this myself, in not judging that, I would have to say that it may not turn out in their best interests of mental and physical health to continue to do that. For instance, I don't think it's a good idea for people who have mental health issues to smoke marijuana. Although marijuana may have its sedative properties and pain-killing properties, I think the psychoactive properties might be proven to vastly outweigh those. And the receptor effects of it may not have conducive effects for people with mental illness, for instance, or mental problems such as schizophrenia. They'd be better off doing some alternative therapies to see if that would work rather than smoking marijuana. Most of the mental health professionals who I know that are open-minded and are not so much in favor of psychotropic, big pharma drug treatment, and who are in favor of more alternative methods and, more positive methods, are tell me all the same thing. Marijuana is not good for people with mental health issues. Anyway, I don't use any of that. I don't like it. I don't like what I see it do to most people. I think it's harmful. But if they want to do it, I think they have every right to pursue it and do it legally. By the same token, and a lot of the marijuana smokers disagree with me here, people who use heroin, cocaine, amphetamines, all the other toxic substances, which heroin probably is the least toxic of all of those, and opiates in general, should also be able to legally consume these in a healthy and harm-free way as possible. It's proven fact more people die from tobacco effects every year than die from alcohol and all the other drugs combined. More people die in traffic accidents every year than all of that. Which shows me that, there's some pretty good impairment in our human judgments when it comes to life and death risk situations. Driving cars is looked upon as a right rather than a privilege, even though it's a privilege under the law. It's all very humorous, to me, anyway. Now, moving forward, what I can tell you is that living in the now has been and remains the proposition. And that means going through all these feelings and emotions and categorizing them for their benefit. Sometimes sadness, for instance, seems all-consuming and overwhelming to the point of depression. And what I have found is that I must embrace that 100% and the pain associated with it until I actually move through all of it. And that does happen when I do that. If I don't do that, it can hang around, anchored in some thinking and beliefs and memories that will cause me pain. When I move beyond that, I'm in great shape. The other thing is, in my opinion, there's too many independent, proprietary self-development gurus and not enough cooperation and linking up except for the purpose of profit. The more these people affiliate, develop some common goals together, the more they will actually help people and probably generate more revenue for themselves and also perpetuate people helping themselves and having social support in which to do that. What I've also seen is this proliferation of completely erroneous New Age nonsense is what I call it. Everything from dowsing to quantum healing to aura reading to mediumship to all of those. Now, by no means am I a James Randi. And by no means do I scoff at the possibilities of any of this having some possible effect-changing ramifications. I've seen totally absurd paradigms embrace to gain suspension of disbelief so that an attention can be affected and in fact produce excellent results. However, there is a lot of charlatanry going on out there for profit. There's a lot of these people that actually somewhat believe the nonsense that they're perpetuating instead of just looking at it as a vehicle or a metaphor to effect great intent. Now, I know, for instance, in the realm of what we call chaos magic, that suspension of disbelief has great effect in helping a person effect their intention with outward results. I also know that what has been scoffed at, which would be lust of results, so to speak, in other words, obsessing about something happening, can also find its suspension in a person adopting beliefs that their effect is already happening, is going to happen, and it doesn't really matter. It has to be almost indifference, a state of indifference to whether it's actually going to occur or not. And in actuality, when we live the intention of a goal or of a statement of intent or purpose, seems to work out, even in some very improbable situations. Also, I can see that the use of the four agreements has been almost indispensable. And I've also noticed that when others judge others according to those, they seem to compromise and discredit their own adoption and practice of those agreements. For instance, when someone doesn't keep their word, when somebody is flippant or changes their mind in a ridiculous, erroneous, and incongruous way, they tend to get judged and by the people they've hurt by their actions. And it is difficult not to take these type of actions personally at first. Once I realize that whatever something is doing is because of what they believe, think, do, feel, and that it really has very little to do with me except in their perception of me, which is really none of my concern, nor any of my import. When I live my perception of these agreements, particularly the first one, which is to be impeccable with my word, I don't like be, I like live impeccably with my word, then I seem to have little problem with taking things personally, making assumptions, and I certainly strive and thrive in doing my best on whatever given day I have the resources to accomplish it. And that is relative to the resources that I have on that given day, and also to how well I've assessed them. So anyway, if there's any of you out there who've been having problems, or in here who've been having problems or perceived difficulties, let us use those as an opportunity to change ourselves. When I do that, I notice great things happen for me and those around me. And I want to encourage myself and you to proceed along those lines, to use all these things that happen as opportunities to live in the now and to embrace completely reality. Remember, reality is probably about 0.01% of all the information that's coming in with regard to our perceptions. So in doing our best, maybe we can extend that a little further and know a little bit more of what, quote, reality, unquote, seems, and live in it and make that our drug. Make reality our drug. And when it's free of judgment, and when we have very simple ways of living that are integral, living within our word. For instance, I recently was judged by a former partner as having sexual liaisons that were less than moral or less than congruent. I had to question that because all of those sexual relationships were within the boundaries and the established behavioral parameters that the parties involved agreed upon. And when those did not work on either end, those relationships ended. And there was no longer the type of relationship that was agreed upon in the beginning there. Most of them have gone back to friendships or acquaintanceships that are pleasant, non-judgmental, and happy. Oh, in fact, almost all of them, except for the party who is acting very judgmentally based, probably on some kind of traumatic beliefs that they had adopted and created moralities to defend themselves against perceived harm. Because really the only harm in that situation was that which was perceived by the other party. Unfortunately, because I love that woman very much, and I was prepared and welcoming, promoting her, and making her a major force in my life. Well, it didn't work, and that's okay. She can do whatever she wants to do, always could. I told her what I would like, and she, in the end, did not want to do it. And that's okay. If there's going to be somebody else out there who is going to join with me, that's great. Or more than one. That's great. It's whatever presents itself. So for the time being, I want everybody to go to a place of happiness. Remember all your greatest feelings of happiness and bring them forward to right now. Yes, and let's experience that as individuals right now. Yes. And as you get there, and as you are in this place and in this deep state of happiness, let's make it permeate our entire body and our being, and what we may think is our spirit or our soul or our higher consciousness. Let's let that radiate, and remember that. If you want to tap yourself on the arm and hold it for a second before it peaks, that's great. If you want to put it in your mind, have a picture of it in that way, and remember that whenever you want to feel happy, that's great. So let's do that right now. And let me leave you with that right now.